Hey everyone, and welcome to the My Friends Don't Read book club. I'm Mel, and today we're going to be reviewing Broken Country. As always, we will start off with a completely spoiler-free summary of the book. Then we'll get into my ratings and first reader readability score. After that, we will get into my actual review of the book, where there will be spoilers, but you'll get a warning before we enter spoiler territory. And trust me, I have some opinions on this book. So, I read this book in a physical format. I have heard that apparently the audiobook is also really good on this one. It is a pretty small book. It took me 2 days to read, and I am a really slow reader still. Yep, so it's 307 pages and pretty standard text. It is kind of a cross between a love story and a bit of a murder mystery. So the blurb. Beth was 17 when she first met Gabriel. Then he left, and it was Frank who picked up the pieces. But when Gabriel comes back years later, their connection is instant. People in the village said nothing good would come of Gabriel's return. And as Beth looks at the man she loves on trial for murder, she can't help but thinking they were right. So this was one of Reese Witherspoon's book club reading recommendations, and a huge 5-star book this year. So I did go into this having quite high expectations, which may have affected how I will end up rating the book. So the book is split into 3 different timelines. If you are a first-time reader, don't let that put you off. The timeline splitting is actually done really, really well. At no point during the book was I confused as to what point we were talking about. It covers Beth in the past, in her teenage years, falling in love with Gabriel. It then covers the now, which is 1968. This is when Beth has moved on a little bit and settled down into her adult life. And then it covers a year later, 1969, where there is the trial. None of this is spoilers because it all kind of is in the description, but it is kind of a love story, or if not 2 love stories, because you have the dynamics between Beth and Gabriel as well as Beth and Frank. But you also have quite a few mysteries throughout the book. Very early on in the book, you find out that Beth's son has passed away. But you have to wait quite a while to find out how and why. So that was a mystery that you're left guessing from the start. We also have the trial come in quite early. You find out that someone was murdered quite literally on the first page. This is separate to her son dying. The book starts, the farmer is dead. He is dead, and all anyone wants to know is who killed him. So you know someone's dead, but you don't know who is dead. You don't know who is on trial. You don't know who the killer is, and you also don't know who Beth actually ends up with. So there's quite a lot to keep you entertained through the whole transition of the book. Even once you find out how Beth's son died, you then have quite a few more mysteries that you kind of need answers to. So my review, I always do out of 10 because I feel it's a bit more descriptive than out of 5, and just everything being a 5-star book. I consider this an 8 to 8.5 out of 10. I didn't go as high as the other reviews, but first book readability, I will score this very, very highly. I will say 9 out of 10, if not 9.5 on the readability scale. As I said, it was really easy to read. I flipped through it in 2 days. Yikes, I just recorded the whole rest of this video and my phone actually went flat, so starting again. There's nothing literature-wise that a new reader won't understand, and it is very Moorish. I definitely think this will be a book that will get you into reading more, especially if you like romance. I'm actually someone that doesn't like romance. I mean, I love love, but I like love in real life. Something about it in a movie or in a book, if it's just the romance alone, just really bores me. This was good because it had that mystery element to it as well. Okay, so let's get into spoiler territory. If you've not read this book and you don't want spoilers, please go read it now and come back. Alright, so we've all read the book. I have a huge question for you, and that is, what did you think of Beth's character? Honestly, it confuses me so much because after this I did my normal thing where I went and looked at other people's reviews to see if they had the same kind of opinion as me. And everything was just 5 out of 5 star, absolutely positive. People just fell in love with the story and fell in love with the book, and barely anyone actually mentioned how bad Beth was. It was written in first person, so you could not escape Beth. And all she did was gaslight herself, and therefore us, and kind of ruin everyone's lives. There was a bit at the very end of the book, like after all the shit had gone down, where Claire Leslie Hall, the author, put in a part in Beth's thoughts where she was talking about how, you know, she's getting stuck in and she's taking accountability, and it was just a little bit late. But it gave the idea that Beth thought that, well, now she has taken accountability and she knows how to do it. That part floored me. Beth didn't take accountability for anything. There are a few snippets where she says that she thinks everything's her fault and she will always feel bad for the rest of time. But did she actually have any at all consequence? No. Everyone that she loves, everyone around her, were affected by her decisions but her. She didn't lose the farm because her parents gave up their beautiful, amazing life that they have always wanted to build when they moved off elsewhere to come back and help her out. She doesn't lose her husband because he pretty much immediately forgives her and never even was really that upset about what had happened, or the fact that his brother lost his life for it. Jimmy lost his life. Leo is a murderer. He's a child, but he's a murderer and he'll have to live the rest of his life with that. Jimmy's partner lost her husband that she completely loved. Beth doesn't even lose Gabriel because he still stays in their life and pretty much forgives her by the end. She quite literally has no repercussions for her actions, apart from the fact that her husband goes to jail and she might be kind of lonely for a few years. Even then, her parents have moved back, so she won't be that lonely. I don't know, man. That was really, really hard for me to read. It's not a reason why I would put the author or the writing down, but just as the story was written, it really confuses me that no one else is talking about that. The biggest reason why I say I hated Beth's character, because hate is a strong word, is the very end where she takes out her diaphragm and deliberately gets pregnant without Frank's consent. I think having a child with someone without their consent is actually worse than the infidelity. Not only has she taken away Frank's brother, the closest person to him, but she's completely put the entire death of their son upon him. She genuinely thinks it's all his fault, even though she also left her son there while a tree was being felled. But she then, to end it all off, knew that he was going to prison and deliberately got pregnant so she would have the little family dynamic that she always wanted, but he would get completely robbed of those formative years of his child's life. There were many, many chapters in this book where it talked about what an amazing father he was, how much he loved babies, how good he was with Bobby when he was in those younger years, and how much he enjoyed that. And then at the end, she's just gone ahead and done that to get what she wanted out of it and completely robbed him. Yes, I do understand that this was written in a time where they probably didn't have fertility treatments or egg freezing. So maybe overall it was good that he still had a chance at parenting, even if he had to start at 5. I do understand that, but the fact that she didn't even talk to him about it, while she's saying that she's laying everything out in the open and they're talking everything over for them to get back together, she then immediately went and did something secretive again. And when she has the phone call to tell him, he's just pure joy and excitement. I think that was really unrealistic, to be honest, because what she did was just completely unacceptable, and it's almost written in a rose-tinted positive way. I found that really, really hard to read, to be honest. Like, Beth, you have taken enough from Frank. Leave the man alone. But yeah, I will move on from Beth's character because honestly, I could pretty much point out many, many pages in this book where she does something so incredibly atrocious and it's kind of just glossed over. I almost do feel like that was deliberate though, because otherwise you wouldn't have cared about the ending. The ending that would have satisfied me the most, honestly, would have been that Beth got her comeuppance. That Frank left her and she lost the farm, and the love, the passion, the enamorment that she has with Gabriel fizzles out. It's kind of the opposite as to what actually happens, but I'm clearly just a Beth hater and maybe people might not agree with that. So every review online has been overwhelmingly positive, but I will say the things that I did see online were that the characters weren't fully fleshed out. I kind of disagree with that. I think even though Beth's character annoyed me a lot, I could have done with a lot less of her. I think most of them were fleshed out to the detail that we needed to follow the story, except for Frank. I found it really hard to understand Frank's character because he was written so perfectly. Frank didn't have a single flaw. He was a great farmer, he was a great husband. He didn't really have any flaws to add to that. So he almost just seemed like a concept that was there rather than a real person. Frank was a man written by a woman, but that did make it really hard for it to be realistic. I do think it was deliberate that we didn't get to hear about their side of their love story till the end, till we knew that she was actually staying with him. But even once we knew their love story, I still just didn't really feel a connection to Frank. I definitely think that Frank deserved better than Beth, but I didn't really feel like we got to know him as a whole. And that kind of leads into why I didn't like the way that infidelity was written. And that was because it was written in a way where this was the natural conclusion to their situation. At no point in the book did Beth think, I am going to have to leave Frank for Gabriel, or I'm going to have to leave Gabriel for Frank. Even right up to the point where she knew that Frank knew, she was just worried about how long she could continue it on for with both of them. Now, this would have made sense. This is something that cheaters do if they loved both of them equally. However, it does mention at one time that she is in love with two men, but from the writing, she does not love Frank. It is all about how enamored and how exciting her relationship with Gabriel is, and Frank is just kind of a concept in the background holding her back. Because it's written like that, I don't understand why her character wouldn't have just left Frank. Yes, towards the end it goes on a bit more about their love story, and maybe it's supposed to show how easily someone can run away with the fairies and get excited about something new rather than what they already have. But I genuinely think for the story to have made any sense, she needed to have shown a little bit more care to Frank than what she did. It honestly doesn't make sense that she ended up with Frank, given the writing in the middle of the book when she was having the affair. If she had just said a couple more things about Frank, rather than what everyone else thought about him, the affair storyline would have made sense. But to me, because that didn't happen, I kind of just feel like it was so unrealistic. In general, I don't really like storylines where there is cheating or infidelity anyway, and that's just a personal opinion type of thing. But I do think it could have been written slightly more compelling, because without those details about Frank's character, as well as any feelings from Beth towards him, did make it hard to understand. And I also really didn't like how just because she was cheating on him, she then instantly just became a horrible person. Because then she started lying to him and gaslighting him, making him feel like his suspicions and his feelings were completely off when they weren't, which is so detrimental to someone. And that was really, really hard to read. That part was realistic though. Okay, so those are the romance aspects of the book. I would say if it was just the romance, I probably would have scored this book quite low. But there were the mystery aspects as well. And some of them I actually really enjoyed. I think the most amazing part of this book, and probably the part that's making everyone have such positive reviews, is that final twist that Gabriel is the paternal father of Beth and Frank's child, Bobby. I really liked that twist. I will say at the very start, I kind of started to suspect that, but then there was enough misdirection that I completely lost that train of thought. So when it did come up in the end, I was genuinely shocked, which was nice. I'm not someone that goes back and rereads books, really. I kind of feel once I'm done with the story, I'm done with the book. But this was a rare exception where I actually did go back and read a few chapters after that plot twist. And that was because it added so much context to some earlier chapters where we didn't really understand what Beth was doing. In the earlier chapters, it made Frank sound like Frank was kind of jealous or possessive of Beth. He didn't like Beth going over to their house or talking to Gabriel's child, Leo. It made it seem like he just didn't trust her, and you should trust your wife. I mean, in general, not this one, but he should get another wife and then trust her. It definitely did paint him in a slightly poor light that he had these jealousy issues, but when you actually go back and read it and know about the paternity of their first son, it adds a really dark layer to that. Frank is actually trying to stop her from not only hurting herself, but hurting them. It is so unacceptable that she went over there and was talking to her son's stepbrother about her son's death, showing him photos, telling him all these stories, and then Leo almost getting this obsession with Bobby, who actually was his brother. So bizarre. On top of that, drinking wine and getting through your own grief of your own son by talking to the paternal father who doesn't even realize that it's his loss. So messed up. That plot twist really added a lot to the story for me, and it definitely undid some of the original feelings that I had, where I felt we didn't really understand Beth's character enough. That gave her a lot more depth. It was a lot more reason to dislike her, but it definitely tied the story together a lot, and I did really like that one. I will say the mystery part in who actually was the murderer, I did see coming. As soon as we knew it was Frank on trial, not Gabriel, from that point on, I knew that Gabriel wasn't a killer, and I kind of pieced together that it would have been an accident or it would have been Leo. Another huge thing that Beth has done is absolutely scarred Leo for the rest of his life. I mean, he is a child, but he is a murderer and has to live with that now, which is insanely dark, really. I feel like you don't even really get a second to think about that until you've finished the book. But I did see that one coming, but I still enjoyed it. The mystery that I didn't enjoy was when we found out how Bobby died. I kind of feel it was almost rushed. The whole book was leading up to this, saying that this terrible thing had happened. We already knew Bobby had died and we didn't know how. And then when it happened, it almost felt a bit comical. I felt like that was the point of the book where I was supposed to cry, and I felt nothing. It was just like, oh yeah, tree accident. All right, move on. I cried at the paternity reveal and I didn't cry at the death of a child. That felt a little bit off. I feel like they kind of rushed to just throw it in there and it didn't really feel realistic. It also felt weird that Beth was completely blaming Frank when she left the house and also let him go roaming at the time of the tree felling. That part of the mystery I wasn't a huge fan of. But I did also like the mystery of who was on trial, Frank or Gabriel, and therefore who Beth ends up being with in the end. Again, I wish she ended up with no one, but it was still really good for the story and really, really captivating to have those little mysteries throughout it. And so I did really, really enjoy that part. So I think in summary, I would probably say the mystery was really high up there for me. I think the romance took a dip, and I don't think that's just because I don't really like romance. I do think it could have been written slightly differently to a point where I would have actually understood the decisions being made more, and it would have seemed more like a real story. But overall, because that mystery aspect was so good, it still was an 8.5 out of 10 for me. I definitely want people to read this. I definitely want you to comment below on your thoughts and feelings about Beth, and if you think maybe I missed anything that led to me having a more negative opinion than other people online. And thanks for watching my second review.